Sorry about the delay, folks, but we're here now. I'll just show you as well. I left some sheets with many of you guys, so if you do have time at some stage, please feel free to leave feedback form on SideQ. Whether you're existing user, new user, or someone just interested, please do fill in the form. So I'm going to just log in here now. This is actually what you're seeing now is the sign in with Google. Log in here. So I'm logging in here with sign in with Google. So what you see here is the dashboard. I'm actually going to this is the view only dashboard. We're going to get to that in a moment. I'm going to log out and log in as another user. So here is the SideKit dashboard itself, or the widget on the main WordPress homepage. When you have SideKit installed, it will add this widget here. As soon as you log into WordPress, you'll see this little widget here. It has some useful information about Search Console, analytics, and yeah, you can, like any other widget here, you can move it around. You can see some of the most important information you might like to see from analytics or Search Console. There's a link at the top that brings you to the dashboard. And there is also, on the front end of your user site, there is a WP admin bar feature. So whatever page you're on, if you have SideKit installed, you can visit any page and it will show you some information specific to that page. So just under here on the SideKit tab, I can click on more details and I'll see a lot of information specific to that URL. How many visitors it has, how people found the site, where your traffic is coming from, locations, the devices used, and you can change the reporting periods here as well. So I'll go back to the dashboard here. On the dashboard, we've split it into different sections. Traffic, which pulls information from Search Console, and Google Analytics. You'll see here search traffic over a specific reporting period. You'll see how your content is doing, how people found your site. And this is really useful too. People always ask us, can you give me some tips how people are finding us? So when you're using SideKit, you'll see these tips. For this site, the most popular ways people were directed to my site. So that gives you kind of like indicators of the type of content you might want to write next. Under the content tab also, we'll have the top content. The most visited, this comes from, it uses the analytics reporting API. So it'll show you the top content over the specific reporting period. Page views, sessions, engagement rate. If we scroll down to page speed here, somebody asked us about page speed insights. As soon as you install SideKit, it's built in. So it's just loading here now, and it will give you some kind of improvement suggestions for your site, just to encourage website best practices. Monetization, you'll see an AdSense little widget here. It uses the AdSense reporting API, so you don't necessarily need to go to adsense.google.com. You can see the information within your dashboard here. If you've connected AdSense with your Google Analytics account also, there's a tab for top performing content. So you can see not specifically the most popular pages on your site, but the best pages with regard to monetization, which pages perform best if you're using AdSense. I'll show you some additional features now we've added recently. Google Analytics, for example. Google Analytics is an optional service that you can connect as soon as you add SideKit. And I'm going to show you some of the features within that we've just added recently in Analytics. So on the settings tab here, under Analytics, you see the different configurations that you can apply. Enhanced measurement, you can exclude, sometimes people, they don't want to include their own WP administrators for reporting, so you can exclude them. And enhanced conversion tracking as well. Under the settings tab, you have consent mode. Does anybody know what consent mode is? You do, yeah? So it allows you to, I suppose, these days with the ever-changing landscape when it comes to consent and privacy, we've built in consent mode this year just to make sure it makes it easy to follow regulations in different regions and different countries, GDPR. So if you're an analytics and Google Ads user, you can enable consent mode. And there's lots of plugins that we work with as well that kind of have native support with Google's consent mode. So that's part of the plugin as well. If you were adding analytics to your site without using Sidekit or pasting in the snippet manually, it would be a lot harder to integrate consent mode. When you're using Sidekit as well, theme updates, the plugin places a snippet on your site, so it's a lot safer than manually copying and pasting the code, putting it in a child theme. Sidekit places it for you, so it just makes it a lot easier. Key metrics is something a lot of you guys asked us for, so we've added that earlier this year. So I've enabled key metrics now, and I'll show you how that looks on the dashboard. Key metrics appear on the top of the Sidekit dashboard, and it shows you little snippets of information that are most important for you. You can customize the different metrics here, and it will pull those information for whatever you want to see. So the metrics you see in the dashboard are specific to each user as well. So you might have some, I suppose, editors, and they want to see the top cities driving traffic, or you have other administrators, they want to see specific information. You can choose that using key metrics, and that's highlighted on the top of the Sidekit dashboard. And if we go back into settings here as well, I'll show you some other features we've added. Visitor groups. This is very useful for segmenting your audiences. So are any of you familiar with audiences in Google Analytics? Okay, so we have a few here. So with audiences, I'll show you here how it works. You can set up audiences here in Google Analytics, independent of Sidekit. You could set up audiences specific for traffic in this city, in Bulgaria. You could, any type of demographics or age groups. You want to see information within your Sidekit dashboard specific to this audience, you can do that with audience segmentation. Within Sidekit, we term this as visitor groups. So you'll see now after enabling it. If we scroll down here, understand how different visitor groups interact with your site. So you can have different type of audience, up to 3 different audiences or visitor groups, and you'll see them here. And again, these are specific to each administrator. So some of you guys probably set up Sidekit or set up WordPress sites for clients. What they see within the visitor groups and key metrics are specific to those. So it's very useful for people who want to see specific information. You can configure it for them, or they can configure it themselves. You can change the groups very easily. We have a little pop-up model here on the site, sidebar. So there's an audience I want to see specific to Ireland. You can enable them there. So that's how key metrics works. I'll get on to Reader Revenue Manager, which I spoke about earlier, because this is a feature a lot of people I think will be really interested in. So let me just open it here. So this is the service itself. It's called Google Reader Revenue Manager, and I do have it set up on a couple of sites here. I'll show you how it looks. So if you've set up Reader Revenue Manager, wait for it to pop up here. When visitors are browsing your site, they'll see a little prompt here, and it's localized as well. So if people want to contribute 21 levs, 10 levs, whatever, you can customize the prompts that appears for users. So again, similar to buy me a coffee type concept, lots of people might be happy to contribute for the content you write. You can customize here as well. You can customize I suppose the benefits from being a contributor or subscriber, and you can add different types of prompts. You can add surveys, you can add subscriber lists, you can add even paywall content. It's all part of this Reader Revenue Manager. So that's a useful way of monetizing your website by, I suppose, writing great content and getting subscribers on board as well. I can show you as well how it looks like on the back end of the site. Let me see. So you can have surveys, you can have newsletters, custom call to actions, reader registrations, and contribution requests. So that's all part of Reader Revenue Manager. And that is available within Sidekit for some users now. We're rolling out incrementally. So yeah, that's something I would definitely suggest testing out, because based on feedback, it's just, I think it's going to be something that's really useful, in particular to monetize your site. Yeah.
So there is a paywall also.
Paywall, there is a paywall here. It's not going to be part of Sidekit just yet, but that is the intention to have it. Yeah, well, Sidekit is for commercial use or individual use, whatever way you want to work Reader Revenue Manager, yeah. Going back to sign in with Google, this is a feature too that is just being released very soon. So we've been working hard on this. We have quite a few members of the team, one of them from Bulgaria actually, but we're hoping to get this out very soon, and it's just going to make it very easy for users to log into your site as well. And you can log in and manage them like the way, it doesn't change anything in WordPress the way you manage your users. It hooks into the standard WordPress user system. So if someone signs in, they're going to be added as a user on your site. So anybody familiar with signing with Google, yeah? Yeah, so yeah, just makes it super easy. I'll show you something else we got from feedback at different WordCamps. Dashboard sharing. So some of you guys set up, Sidekit users, you probably set up the plugin for some clients. Yeah, so a lot of feedback we got from people was they were setting up the plugin for people, or they were sharing a login. And sometimes that can cause issues, because if you set up Sidekit for someone, it uses OAuth 2, so it's connecting with your Google account. So you've connected Sidekit, you've connected Google Analytics with your own Google account. So that can cause problems if you're sharing the account, because yes, they'll see the information they need to see, but there are some other features that maybe you don't want to share. When you've set up Sidekit, if you go into settings, if you want to change your analytics account, for example, other users who you shared that with will be able to see those analytics account. So based on that, we added what's called dashboard sharing. So you'll see it here on the top, this little icon here, and it allows you to share what you see in this, whatever you want users to see on the Sidekit dashboard with other users. And they don't necessarily have to be administrators. They don't need to log in with their own Google account, but you can choose what you want them to see on the Sidekit dashboard. They could just be editors, they could be any different type of user profile, even custom roles. You can configure what you want them to see on the Sidekit dashboard, and they don't need to go through this they don't need to go through the Google setup process. So yeah, dashboard sharing is really useful. This feature here, little question mark icon, for me I feel it's underutilized, because this plugin is free and we have some really good people working on the plugin. So when you click on the question mark here, there's links to some help guides and documentation. So a lot of people who reach out to us for whatever reason, some of them having issues with analytics, any reason at all. There's links here to the support documentation. There's also a Get Help with AdSense link and a Get Support link. So one of the things we're really proud about is the support we provide in Sidekit, whether it's analytics, AdSense, anything. It's completely free. It doesn't matter, you can open a support topic. One of the aims we have is to answer users within 24 hours. We're always happy to hear any type of feedback. If you look at the plugin reviews too, gradually we've been just really happy to engage with users. When you open a support topic, you will hear from us. We also like to, I suppose, sneak into the different Google services. And many of you probably reach out in the AdSense Help Center, in the Analytics Help Center. I spoke with someone who works as a product expert in Search Console. So we'll always try to help people out in these different platforms or forums too. So yeah, if you're using Sidekit, make sure you use this Get Help link and Get Support. The Fix Common Issues link brings you to the Sidekit website. So yeah, that has a host of information about the different features and services. Have any of you opened ever a support topic within Sidekit? No? So one of the things I do is I answer support topics. So I'll be around here after as well if you guys do use Sidekit, if you have any questions, even if you didn't open a support topic, I'm happy to discuss or I suppose help out with any issues you might have. Yeah, so any questions so far? No? Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
My question is about the consent, Google consent.
Yeah.
By default, the plugin is installing everything necessary, or we have to do additional stuff, like manually put the code somewhere?
Yeah, so the plugin will, as soon as you install Sidekit, it doesn't add any extra code to your website apart from a meta generator tag, and it connects to your site. It verifies your Google account with Search Console. So it doesn't add any code other than the meta generator tag. when you install Sidekit. But when you talk about consent, if you add Google Analytics with using Sidekit, it will place the code for you by default. Now you can, I'll show you, you can disable that snippet if you want. I'll show you the snippet that it does place as well. This is documentation on the plugin website. So Sidekit modules and your site source code. If you go to Analytics here, this is the code it will place on your site. It's the same as if you went to Analytics directly, analytics.google.com, copy the code and pasted it on your site. Sidekit does that for you. It does it for you even if you're an AMP user. But it's a standard Google Analytics snippet that you would copy and paste from yourself on your site. With consent mode, yes, it doesn't add consent. Consent mode isn't enabled by default, but you can enable it within the plugin under settings and consent mode. It works natively with some. You'd still need to use a consent management plugin. We do have a guide here on the website as well. So by default, it's up to users themselves to, configure consent how they want to configure them. There's so many different, regulations in different countries. It's very hard to manage themselves, but there's so many great plugins, consent management plugins that do that for you as well. And consent mode ties in with them. So if you've enabled consent mode, in some regions, by default, when someone visits your site, they might not be registered in Google Analytics. And that's not a Sidekit thing, that's, regulation thing. If you've enabled consent mode, you use Google Ads and Analytics, there is a chance visitors from Ireland, for example, or other EU countries like here, might not be tracked unless they've explicitly granted consent. So yeah, consent mode makes it, easier to manage those kind of regulations. But it's not enabled by default. You can enable it very easy, and it works. Like I said, we have a guide on the plugin website too. Here it is, and it mentions some of the plugins that work natively with Google's consent mode. But yeah, it doesn't add any extra code unless you add consent mode. Any other questions on consent mode or sign in with Google? Yeah, we have another one.
Yeah, my question was again about the consent mode integration.
Yeah.
So you have a standard, those types of consents that people give, so they work out of the box with other plugins, right?
Yes, out of the box, we do suggest, out of the box, it will install Google's consent mode on your site. But you do need to use another plugin if you want, because if you enable consent mode, you're basically stating that users won't be tracked in some countries unless they've explicitly granted consent. So Sidekit isn't a consent management plugin.
Yeah.
But
do you plan to introduce something like that in the future?
There's no plans at the moment to release,
like the front end part that shows the pop-up or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I suppose in AdSense you can configure your own they have their own kind of privacy, but that's to do with ads. But there's no. Some of these consent plugins work natively with consent mode anyway. So yeah, we leave it to the consent management plugins and whatever way users want to configure consent mode. Any other questions on maybe sign in with Google or Reader Revenue Manager?
Hi.
Hi.
My question is in regards integrations with reporting systems as you have, like Looker. Can the same templates be transferred to Looker, so the same level of access and visibility of the metrics can be distributed to the Looker Studio report and then once again sent to a client, for example?
That's a great question. So Google and Sidekit itself uses lots of different Google APIs as it stands. So it pulls information in from the Analytics Reporting API, AdSense API. A lot of people did ask us about building our own mini API, and Sidekit is completely open source, so it's on GitHub. I think there is a GitHub issue to kind of create a mini API for Sidekit, but because we're pulling so much information in from APIs, I'll have a quick look on the GitHub now. I know there was an issue for it, but at the moment we don't have anything that can hook in. We don't have a mini API that would work for that. But I suppose you could still use the different. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, not really, because it uses Google Analytics. So anything you're looking at, those type of information you just still get from Analytics directly itself. We do have a couple of things are changing. Like we get a lot of requests for, go back to the dashboard here. We are adding at some stage custom reporting periods. So at the moment we have 4 different reporting periods. Being able to customize reports and make PDFs or email reports, that's a request we get. But yeah, the mini API I've heard a few times, but if you check out the plugin's GitHub, you might see something floating around about that. But that's the type of feedback we love to hear. The more people that kind of chime in on a GitHub issue, the more likely it is to be addressed or, you know, to be acted on. Yeah.
Hi. So 2 questions. One is for sign-in with Google. Does that work with WooCommerce for clients?
Great question, because it works a little bit differently with WooCommerce, and we're still working on that, but it's going to be released very soon, and it will work natively with WooCommerce as well. Yeah. So that's the intention, and it's going to be released very soon. So they're working on it at the moment, and yes, it is a little bit different with WooCommerce, but it will work. Yeah.
And a second question, does SiteKit work well with GA4 and WooCommerce for all the data needed?
Yeah, it doesn't show, like what I showed you with key metrics, you will be able to see some, if you've connected WooCommerce, and yeah, you can choose some of the metrics you'll see within here, but it doesn't have a WooCommerce specific dashboard. So that's a question I might get in support forums quite a bit, but sometimes we tell people like, it's not a WooCommerce specific plugin, so if you're using WooCommerce plugin for analytics, you can still use SiteKit. You don't necessarily have to use SiteKit to place the code, but SiteKit will work with WooCommerce plugins as well. Even if you're placing the code with another plugin that works with WooCommerce, you can still use SiteKit, and it doesn't place the code twice. It will use your existing Google Analytics connection. So yeah. Any other questions?
Yes, hi.
Yeah.
I have a question about signing with Google. Is it possible, is it some integration with second factor authentication with Google Authenticator? After login, can I use Google Authenticator for second authentication?
Well, it uses OAuth anyway to connect. Are you talking about as an administrator setting it up? Yeah, so it uses OAuth 2.0 anyway. So when you're setting it up, you need to go through a setup process. It creates a Google Cloud project for you. So you just need to grab the credentials and paste it in. Let me just. Yep.
Can I allow the second authentication to use the second code for Google Authentication app, for example? Because sometimes the users are leaving the browsers with the same password. My point is, like, there is a lot of plugins that is allowing you to use the second factor authentication. You are using up your phone, entering your password, you are going in
Gotcha.
site, so you are punching additional code.
Yeah, I suppose it's really up to whatever way if the user is enabled two-factor authentication. There's no, we don't, we leave it to OAuth. So some users have two-factor authentication set up. You don't need to configure it. It's down to individual users. And when you're setting up sign in with Google, it goes through your own OAuth and it creates your own plugin. But no, we don't really. It's down to individual users. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, if you use Google Sign In and the
Sorry, it's very dark here to see.
yeah, and if you use Google Sign In and the WordPress site gets hacked, is that a security threat to the Google account?
No, because again, it uses like OAuth, so users' credentials, passwords and logins aren't saved in the database. It's OAuth. So if your WordPress site gets compromised, individual users, their connection it's the same as any other when they're using a sign-in with Google. There's nothing saved in the database specific to the user when it comes to their Google credentials, their login.
So no emails and stuff can be accessed.
No emails and stuff can be accessed. No. It's just OAuth for authentication to user. That's all. Sorry?
Questions.
Of course, yeah. That's why we're here.
That's SEO questions.
SEO questions.
Can
Yeah.
you tell me 10 most important factors for Google in the last updates in August 2020?
Oh, that's a very. Yeah, you're probably best going to. We do have there's a Google Search Console expert here. Actually, he's doing a talk at some stage. I was talking with him. He might be your best bet when it comes to SEO and Search Console. But if it's sitekit specific, I'd be very happy to help out. But yeah, I'd leave that to the Search Console experts. Sorry, I can't help you with that too much. Any other questions? Yep, there we go.
You mentioned that it has a light speed technology. I'm not sure I understand what you want to say. Does this mean that it doesn't take a lot of resources from the WordPress website?
Yeah, so Lighthouse technology, it's Lighthouse, it's on GitHub. I suppose it's the technology we use to build page speed insights. So if you visit a website, I can show you here now. It's the same as what's built into developer tools. So if you open any website, click on inspect, you can run a performance report here. That's Lighthouse as well. So I suppose that's the technology that page speed insights is built on. So you don't necessarily have to, you could use it through the browser, you could use it through developer tools, you can run a report, and that's what Lighthouse technology is.
Okay, because usually when I make websites, I try to avoid as much as possible plugins that we don't need.
Yeah.
And okay, most of the functionality mentioned for this plugin is something we will already install anyway, or connect the website with Search Console, Google Analytics. I don't know if it has Google Ads, something.
Yep.
So it's like additional plugin, which I'm not sure I would choose to use, in fact, because of resources issue and the hosting that usually is, when you try to buy something which is not very expensive in the hosting area, you try to avoid stuff.
Of course, yeah. No, performance is a question we get quite a lot, and you don't necessarily have to use page speed insights on your site. Any of these services, you can choose which to, I suppose, connect. You can disconnect, connect, whichever ones you want. But when it comes to performance, sitekit is mainly a WP admin operated plugin. On the front end, it doesn't add any, there's no page requests that go to sitekit. If you add Google Analytics, for example, you only have the standard request that goes to Analytics itself. There's no additional, I suppose, network requests. There's always going to be trade-offs if you add like Analytics, AdSense, lots of these services to your site. There's always going to be a small trade-off because ad networks have to be served on your site. So there's always going to be a small trade-off, but they're not sitekit specific. That's something we do get quite a lot, and I suppose we try to explain. We have a guide on the website to explain it better than I do here, but just to let you know that they're not sitekit requests. And PageSpeed Insights, for example, doesn't make any requests. It's only on WP admin, so that wouldn't really impact performance on your front end. And like I said, it's optional, but it's mainly on WP admin. So, any other questions? Did anybody get a chance to, I don't see too many people with laptops, but I'll be around later after anyway, so if you have any questions, feel free to pop over, have a chat. No more questions before we finish up, no? Yeah, one more.
Is that okay for you?
Yeah, I can answer any AMP questions, yeah. I'm not Annie, but I'll try.
Yes. Please tell me your opinion of AMP a little bit, and is that now okay to use for just your opinion?
My personal opinion, I use it on some personal websites. It's not for everybody because AMP, of course, it limits JavaScript, for example. It's a lot harder for even developers to make some things work in AMP as they do in non-AMP. So yeah, I can understand it's harder, and some people ask, I suppose, is it still going to be around? I think it's set off a trend. I think it can be very useful. It makes websites load very fast, and yes, it might be a little bit harder to set up websites if you want to make them fully AMP compatible, but I'm happy you asked because sitekit does. If you're using AMP, when you add Tag Manager, for example, it will give you the option to choose your regular container, but it will also give you the option to choose your AMP container. So in Tag Manager, there's AMP and there's non-AMP, and it will place, I suppose, the snippets on an AMP compatible website and non-AMP. But me, I think it's very useful. Yeah, I also think it's I suppose made people aware of performance and whether they use AMP or not. You know, started a discussion, and lots of people, I suppose, just made them realize that some things need to change. You go to a website these days, there's a lot of, I suppose, pop-ups and things happen, and AMP kind of improved that, I feel. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you everyone for attending. Really appreciate it. The questions were really good, and be sure to check out the website if you have a chance. Again, feedback. I dropped some forms around the place, so we'd love to hear your feedback. And yeah, and it's been great. So thank you everybody.